Hello, welcome to Film and Television Examinations, Episode 5, and for today's episode, we're going to talk about the fantasy genre. Now, the fantasy genre is a genre where it shows a bunch of stuff like magic, creatures, stuff that can never be, in real life. Like, sometimes it's not, fantasy can not exactly be just about magic. Sometimes it's just creatures, not magic, but...
Yeah, it could be something that's really not real or something that you envision. Kind of like a dream almost, because most dreams are not real because they don't happen until they actually do happen, unless they don't. But yeah, fantasy genre, it's interesting because it's always fascinating to see how something could come to life, Like you envision something down the line and you want to make it happen, or you think it's going to happen, or you could be living in La La Land for all we know.
Yeah.
But it's always funny to see sometimes in movies or even TV shows, especially on how they're used as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just awesome for the whole genre because, it's entertaining.
And endless possibilities at the same time.
Endless possibilities.
Yeah.
You said it.
Some examples of the fantasy genre are like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, the Chronicles of Narnia franchise, and basically every single classic Disney movie.
You could say The Walking Dead is a fantasy too.
No, it's more horror and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but zombies ain't real.
Well, that could also be science fiction because you don't know what causes the virus.
Yeah, the government won't ever let it happen.
Oh, yeah, but even the comic creator of that series thinks that aliens caused the virus to happen.
Yeah, and I'm Vin Diesel.
Yeah. So when people think of fantasy, they just think magic, but it belongs to many genres and all that, like comedies, action. There's even horror and even the superhero genre, like big time superhero, like Doctor Strange and all that.
Spider-Man.
Well, Spider-Man is more science fiction. I mean,
Fair enough. You could say Thor, fantasy.
Yeah.
You could say Luke Skywalker, fantasy.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to look into. It doesn't have to be just a specific plot or setting. It could be a guy or a place or a thing.
Yeah.
Like Godzilla, fantasy. King Kong, fantasy, because no gorillas are ever growing that big.
Yeah.
So you get the point. It's always fun to see how they capitalize on this type of stuff in movies, as I was stating before.
Yeah, there's even science fantasy where science fiction and fantasy tend to cross into each other.
Yeah, exactly. Like Spider-Man.
Well, there's this one Disney film. It was called The Treasure Planet, and that's considered science fantasy.
Good to know.
Yeah. So when people think of fantasy, they usually sometimes think it could be it's for kids and all that kind of stuff. Understandable because of Disney, but there are hardcore adult stuff like Game of Thrones. Trust me on that.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the Harry Potter franchise went from PG to PG-13 in later films, and Lord of the Rings was always PG-13.
Lord of the Rings, interesting. Never cared about Harry Potter.
Yeah. Well, I used to not, but then I liked it, but...
Too much wizarding stuff for me. I'll stick to Star Wars.
I read all 7 books, back to back.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That is not easy.
Yeah, the 5th book was literally the longest, 800 something pages.
I'd probably be asleep by page 50. But I respect the gratitude and I respect the courage.
Yeah. That's all for today's show. We'll be back next show to talk about the superhero genre, but for now, I'll see you next time.